can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
In this video, I'm going to be giving my opinions and thoughts about wall outlet welders. It's at least what I tend to call them. And whether or not I think they're worth purchasing. And whether or not I think they're worth you spending your hard-earned cash on. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into it, as I don't want to make this video too long. First off, these welders, again, can plug into the same wall outlet that your toaster, coffee maker, phone charger plug into. Essentially, you can go anywhere with these things. Anywhere that's got mainline power or even generator power, if the generator can run sensitive electronics off of it, that is, you can plug these things in. So they're incredibly portable from a power consumption point of view. Kind of in line with their power consumption, a lot of them can run off of a 15 amp breaker. It's recommended to have a 20 or even a 30 amp breaker, which I know is pretty unrealistic. I'm about 85% sure that I have a 15 amp breaker in my garage workshop area. Is more likely to trip my breaker than my welder is. So their power consumption needs makes them very portable, as do their size. 110 or 115 volt welders, wall outlet welders, don't need to be very big, since they're not taking on a ton of input power and they don't need to output a ton of power either. Because of that, these welders end up being quite compact and lightweight and very easy to carry around. Mine only weighs about 10-ish pounds, so it's very easy to carry around. It weighs about as much as a box of stick electrodes, now that I think about it. It's very easy to carry around, and it's very easy to just set up. Most of them do come with a shoulder strap, so if you don't have long enough cables, you can just get an extension cord and toss the thing over your shoulder and climb up a ladder and put your weld in. But because we live in the real world, you just can't get the best of everything for a small sum of money. While wall outlet welders are relatively inexpensive, the MIG welders are generally more expensive than the stick welders. I haven't really found any straight wall outlet current, 110, 120 volt TIG welders out there on the market. They probably exist. Let me know if you guys have seen any. For this video, I'm just talking about MIG and stick. They don't cost a lot because they don't need a lot inside of them. It's just 120 volts. It's what your toaster gets powered off of. It doesn't need a lot inside of it. But are the drawbacks to that really worth it? While these things are inexpensive, they don't output a lot of power. It's like you can turn them up to about 100 amps is the most you can get out of a wall outlet. You have 100 amps and that is it. There is no way you are getting more than 100 amps out of that little welder. Anything more, you need like a 30 or 40 amp breaker, and at that point it would just be better to put 220 in your shop. And because of their limited power, they can't really weld that thick of material in a single pass. Now my welder, because I have a lot more experience with the 110 volt stick welders as opposed to 110 volt MIG welders, I've used a few smaller MIG welders, but I don't own any, and if I'm going to buy a MIG welder, I'm probably either going to buy dual voltage or just install 220 and get a bigger MIG welder. But the MIG welders, they can't weld really anything over a 1/4 inch, and it's a struggle for them. The stick welding, you can do 1/4 inch pretty easily, because stick welding amperage is not set based off of material thickness, but rod thickness. My machine will burn a 332nd 7018 really well, considering what it plugs into and what it outputs for power. And if you're willing to do multiple passes, you can weld 1/4 inch or thicker, no problem. But if you're trying to weld 1 inch thick plate, it would be much more practical to step up in size to a bigger welder and run bigger rods, like a 1/8 inch or 5/32. So really, do I think that these kind of welders are worth it? Really, only if you want to mess around. There are so many other options out there that are dual voltage for not much more than what these 110, 120 volt wall welders cost. And that technology is becoming more and more available. So if you want to maybe dip your toes in, 110 volt welders might be for you. However, if I had to give someone a personal recommendation, I would say look for something that's dual voltage. If you decide you want to step up, you don't have to spend money on a bigger machine. You just have to plug it into 220. Maybe you have to get 220 installed, and I know that can be kind of expensive, but if you buy a 220 volt, but if you buy a dual voltage machine, you'll only have to get 220 installed, not get 220 installed, and then purchase a machine for that. Anyways, this was just kind of a random little video that I felt like making. The reason it's a little late is because I was kind of conflicted on how I wanted to edit it. Hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to see more content welding related, please consider subscribing to my channel. Anyways, that's all from me. I'll see you guys next week.